Judges in 2 hours' time, if the speaker was any good. We're in the tennis industry, you've read enough resumes that said, you know, like, this person played on the tour. I've always wondered why everybody played on the tour. I'm not sure quite which tour it was. Maybe it was the bus tour or something. But let's judge today based on what we get out at the end of it. As my ex-wife, very nice lady, once said when I was given a big award, that doesn't mean you don't get to clean the bathroom this afternoon. So we like to stay in the real world as much as we possibly can, and those things don't really mean too much. So first of all, thanks to Bo and his team for all of their efforts in getting me here and the support from the USPTA. This is my first time in Mississippi, would you believe that? It is state number 32 for me, so I've done more than most Americans have. Tomorrow I'm going to Alabama, so you have to, I have to apologise in advance. The fact I'm going from Mississippi to Alabama, I understand. I do get football a little bit,
yeah.
But great to be here. Apologies I'm only here for a day, but the way I like to do things, as you can see, with coffee in hand, is fairly relaxed, open kind of format. The thing that we all have in common is we all are involved in running, managing tennis programs, but beyond that we all have different environments, whether it be country clubs or traditional clubs or parks and recs or commercial facilities. So the other thing I always say is I never know when I'm going to say anything intelligent. There is no big handout for this. There are about 60 slides which we will willingly share with you all at the end. Yeah, so don't feel like you have to write down everything that's in every slide or take pictures. But occasionally we get the banana from above, you know, the piece of information that suddenly means something to you, and you know, that's the thing that you write down on the back of a piece of paper somewhere. There's way too much information for you to implement it all, and I always say this is not coach education, this is just coach information. Coach education starts when you get back to your club and you try and change something or do something or make something a little bit different. So we all know that we've been to lots of these things before. I am preaching to the converted, but at the same time, it's more about what you do after this is finished than necessarily what we share today. Okay. What would be really good for me, and it'll allow us to find some chairs for the people at the back because you're making me feel uncomfortable. What would be really good for me is if you just sat on your table to start with and said, okay, we're going to talk about programming today, especially for kids. Now, in other words, what you provide for the kids at your facility within your program. What are the things that and I'm not necessarily going to ask for feedback, but I want you to frame it on your table. What are the things that you feel that you do particularly well, that you're successful at, and what are still the challenges within your program? Just so that you know, because it's 2 hours, so we're going to stop this every once in a while and go, okay, let's discuss this around our table and see where we're at. So let's just start with that approach. Just introduce yourself if you don't know everybody. Okay, what's good, and what are the aces, and what are the double faults or the 5-1 down in the tie breaks? Yeah, just for a couple of minutes. All right, and then we'll let you guys grab a chair. All right, thanks. Every day we can only focus on so many things, and if we go out there, perhaps it's worth just focusing on our A-list for a while and trying to move forward. Okay, so as you know, this presentation is about programming. Yeah, we call it secrets, but really for me, programming is about how we produce a product that is going to engage, retain, and develop players. So we want them through the door, we want them to stay, we want them to commit to more, and we want them to get better. We all know that even within the space that we're talking about here, kids tennis, there are days when as a teaching pro you wake up and you go, I've got to teach those kids today. And there are other days when you wake up and you go, I get to teach those kids today. Yeah? So somewhere along the line, we know that the secret to life, health and happiness as a teaching pro is teaching kids who are committed to the game. And for me, that's not necessarily kids who are the performance kids, but that's a kid who, I had a call from a parent once who said, we have a problem with this boy, I won't say his name, he keeps hitting the ball against the side of the house. That's not a problem, that's great, really, that's great. Yeah, inside the house, in the living room while we're trying to watch TV. How do we stop it? Those are the kind of kids that we kind of want to be teaching. We want kids to love the game like we love the game, and that's kind of our mission. Our mission is to create something that engages them. I'll say this, it's very controversial, but once a week tennis has to be a pathway to twice a week tennis, otherwise it's a pathway to nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah? As much as we like to give everybody a chance and a taster, there has to be a point at which they shift to a higher level, or ultimately they do give up. And we feel like, you know, we've wasted a lot of energy. I think it was Sweden did a study that said most kids who come once a week have left within 20 months, even in the good programs, even with transition balls and all those kind of things. So we have to kind of understand that if we want somebody in our program that's going to stay in our program, it is going to require us to do the right things to get them to commit a little bit more. And we have to be honest with ourselves. And we have to be honest with parents as well. We have to say to parents, yes, I do need your kid to come more than once a week. Yes, it will cost you more money, but it doesn't matter whether it's music, art, language, or sport. If you want your kid to be good at something, and that's what most parents want, not necessarily for their kid to be a professional, but a parent's role is to find the kid, the thing that ignites their kid's passion for something. You know, my daughter's 16 now, she's not a tennis player, but we have to find the thing that makes her have a purpose, where she wants to go, what she wants to do, and then do more of it. And that's quite important for us to remember. We explain that honestly if we can. So, as we move through this, we're just going to start with a few little big picture things. So just so you understand where I'm coming from. This is the sort of big picture of the world. The world kind of does kids tennis. You watched the Australian Open this year. Well, Australian Open is one of the few tournaments that actually puts their kids tennis program logo alongside the court. I'm very happy about that because I designed it. All right, so I always feel good at this time of year. So basically, these are all different programs from all around the world. Can you guess where that one's from? That's from Norway. In Oslo, 8 times a year, they have red, orange, green tournaments. The average number of kids coming to a red tournament is 260. 1-0. The federation is not involved. Guess who runs it? It's 20 passionate coaches who all want their kids to play, all sit down around a table like this before and go, right, put those kids together, those kids together, those kids together, organise the entries, organise everything, run the whole thing themselves. Yeah, and then they have over another 200 plus, the number's always over 500 in the orange and green section as well. Right? So there are programs going on all over the world with these kind of balls and these kind of bits of equipment, but they're actually all a little bit different. And common trends, a lot of people have started to use these balls a little bit more in 12s, it's a big discussion. Participation has become performance. All these programs started with, let's get more people playing tennis, and then, oh, actually we can make some good players using this stuff. Competition structures have become more formalised. Not necessarily a good thing. We'll talk about that a little bit later, if it's the only thing. I remember I was sat with a woman up in Connecticut, just talking to this woman who was one of the coaches, an older lady, and she said, yeah, I don't really like these kids' balls stuff, I don't like all that stuff. But oh, okay, just like the idea of using yellow balls. She's like, no, it's not about that, it's about the competition. I feel like some of these kids get into competition too early, too serious at a very young age, and it's spoiling their sense of fun and the whole thing. So we had a really in-depth conversation, and I left and I said to the tennis director, that lady's got some really good stuff to say. And he said, yeah, she should have. It's Becky Blake, James's mum. So, you know, somewhere along the line, there's some issues we have to talk about competition. And now what's been happening, there's a lot of measuring and monitoring. That's kind of like, let's go measure all the apple trees that have been in the ground for 6 months and predict which one's going to have the best fruit. No system yet has proved, actually, they can identify talent. In fact, I never ever use the word. Because every time you use it, the kid's effort level goes down and the parents' expectations go up. Okay is my favourite word. Kids okay. Alright? Alright. A lot of times people have dumbed this down to reduce the challenge. We've done a lot of work recently with computer games. Do you know the average amount of time you play Call of Duty, the shooting game, before you're shot dead on the very first time you play? 7 seconds. Within 7 seconds of starting this game, you're dead. The game always ends with you being killed. Okay? You move through the levels, getting killed, progressively more and more and more and more and more, meeting more challenges and getting killed. And 92% of American kids between the age of 2 and 17 play computer games. And fundamentally, the way that most of these games operate when you move to the next level is always about challenge. You stop when you fail. Failure is not a big problem for kids. We dumb it down too much. There's a lot of other things like we've ignored child development and growth, which have been an issue. There was a famous, I don't know if you remember the story of the little boy Jan Silva, whose parents moved the whole family to Paris about 10 years ago, when he was 5, so he could train full-time at the academy. And as his dad sat there to the camera and told him how his kid was going to win at least 5 Grand Slams, the kid was sat on the floor in the background in his Spider-Man pajamas playing with his G.I. Joe. 5-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 7-year-olds. That's the one thing I can tell you from travelling over 82 countries in the world. Kids. Yeah, they have the right to be served as kids. And there's still, actually, even though we have all these tools, a problem with retaining kids. The idea of red, orange and green creating this amazing net that was going to capture all these kids and save tennis is not as true as people pretended it is. Okay? For those of you that hate it in the room, I just gave you loads of ammunition. I'm going to blow it all up in the next 45 minutes, but you know, there you go. All right? There's a couple of other things I want you to remember. Your kids program is not supposed to be Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Disneyland. I'm from a place, and I'll say this in Mississippi, and it could be a very dangerous thing to say. I'm from a place where we have this game called football, which you call soccer. Now, I don't understand why you call it football, because you only kick it every 20 minutes, as far as I can work it out. As far as I'm saying, you should call it like smash heads or chuck it or something like that. I love it, don't get me wrong. Yeah, big Steelers fan here, right? So I love it, but I come from that. Now, no kid this Christmas got a soccer ball, ran out in the street, put it down on the ground and said, I'm going to pretend it's a spaceship. They all went out and pretended they were heroes, the same as in baseball, the same as in basketball, the same as in all those things. No other sport makes up silly stuff around their sport. They create heroes. Now, I was on Facebook this morning at 5 AM, which is what happens when you travel 27 hours a day before and your body clock is still in English time. Okay? And England, Great Britain, I say Great Britain, you know when Andy Murray wins, he's British, and when he loses, he's Scottish. Yeah. Yeah. So we had an English person who's actually born in Hungary, raised in Australia, and now is English. No, she spent most of the time in England. Win the Sydney Open this morning. Yeah. I'm wondering how many British coaches are going to post that on their Facebook page, share that with all their kids, put that in their clubhouse and do all those things. We don't do that sport. We don't share heroes. I can bet my life. I tell you what, the scariest day I ever had in my life, I was in Baton Rouge, and I came out of the hotel and LSU were playing. It's like, hell, there's a cult in town. What's going on? It was like Hare Krishna, but just like yellow and purple rather than orange. Okay, and it's also, your program is not Harry Potter and the Wonder World. You can't wave a wand and magical things happen. You have to do hard work. Yeah, and the challenges that we actually face with this program is kids are starting younger, but they can learn more in less time. I never say this program makes things easier. Parents don't want to hear that. You can teach a kid more things in less time. You can especially teach a kid to be smart. And I'd ask you in this room, how many genuinely stupid children do you teach? As a percentage. Mine's less than 1%. I don't teach stupid children. Right? But you know what I mean? Tennis kids are intelligent kids. Normally they come to the court, they can work things out. They can solve immense problems. And we have to make sure that we teach them in a very intelligent way. And that's part of what this program's about. Hey, you know what? The ball's going to come back one more time than it did before. You can't just smack your forehand over there, smack your forehand over there, and that's the end of the point. Have you ever played red tennis with a group of adults who can actually play? It's really hard to finish the point. Tactically, you have to become really smart really fast. There's lots of opportunities like that. So, That's kind of what the sort of global picture of what this thing is all about. But that still doesn't address what we're here to talk about today, which is programming. Yeah. Now, programming starts when you really think about understanding needs. Yeah, and that means understanding the needs of your customer. So, first group discussion. Who's your customer? Right? On your table, see how many customers you can come up with, not individual people's names. Yes? So one customer is the kid. That's not the only customer. Okay? When you're delivering this program, who are the customers that you've got to look after? Yeah? So on your table, quick, you've got 45 seconds to come up with at least 6. There will be prizes at the end. Go.
Customer, I think, selling it.
It could be the simplest way of doing it.
Okay, time's up. Right, you should at least have come up with your customer's parent as well. And for me, there's absolutely with kids programming, there's a dual thing. How much time do you spend looking after the kid? How much time do you spend looking after the customer? Who's the parent, right? How much time with the kid? How much time looking after the parent? 80-20? 90-10? 100-0? How does that work? Right? Because last time I looked, if I was in business, the person that gives me the money is the parent. The person who will take their kid away if they're not happy is the parent. The person that could cause me the most nightmares by creating the wrong environment for the kid and spoiling all the work that I've done is the parent. And we literally make the sign of the cross and back away as they come through the door. So we're going to talk about parents a bit later, because parents need your help. And part of our programming has to be, how do we look after parents? Yeah? And I do a lot of parent presentations, and most of the time the parents go, oh, thank God somebody said that. Because they all feel the same. And they all feel like, who's a parent in this room? Put your hand up. Right? Now, okay, you can keep your hand up if you, 100% of the time, that's my mother funny because I mentioned parents. Right? If 100% of the time you know what you're doing. No. If 20% of the time I know what I'm doing, I'm happy. Yeah? So they need a lot of help. All right. So what are the other ones we've got? Okay. We might be working with other clubs, with other organisations. There is a thing, there is a concept in marketing that's about the 3 personality types. Have you ever heard of the carp, the sharks, and the dolphins? Okay, the carp are the victims of life. They swim around waiting to be eaten. The sharks are always hungry and believe there's not enough, and they go around grabbing everything they can, even when they're not hungry. Dolphins just understand, if we make the pool bigger, there's enough for everybody. There is not a single reason for anyone in this room to be competing with anybody else in this room within tennis. We should all be working together, because you know what? There's loads of kids out there. There's kids just walking on the street, there's kids in school. If we do all work together, we can massively grow the pool of tennis players. But sometimes, so that's why we've got feeder clubs, community, obviously USTA, parents, all those. So the big question is, and this is an interesting one, what is it a kid wants from being involved in your tennis program? Now, very often we talk about tennis as we're selling tennis. No, we're not selling tennis. So let me give you a good example. My girlfriend is a 3-5. She has a bit of a life of luxury sometimes, but actually she does work hard. But she can play kind of whenever she likes. So she can play in the mornings because she works for herself, and she can play in the evenings. She is 40, just give her age away, just don't record this bit, Todd, okay. Right, so she's 40, she's a 47-year-old lady who plays at 3-5 level. Okay? What do you think she wants from tennis?
Turn pro. Turn pro.
Turn pro, yeah, that's what I used to say. Everybody came out, you know, like 75-year-old lady would come out and go, is there a 75-year-old lady category in Wimbledon? Let's see if we can get her in. No, she's got no ambitions to that whatsoever.
More social.
Yeah, so the people that she plays tennis with, vitally important, yeah? Social, okay? What else? Exercise. So she wants to be active, keep moving, yeah? What else?
Okay. Sometimes competitive.
She's very competitive. She's a lawyer. Right? Honestly, like, I just open my mouth with a question and I'm worried the whole
She's a busy public contact.
Okay. It might even be contacts, yeah. But you see, she's got. Do you see what I mean when I say, what does a kid want from your program? What do they want from that program? It's not tennis. It's all the things that tennis brings, and we have to start thinking about what is it. I played a good example. I played soccer for 5 years when I was a kid. I was the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer of my team. Now, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a player that played for Manchester United, my team, and they brought him on for the last 10 minutes. Right? I don't know what the equivalent of that is in US sport, but he would score the wonder goal and say, you know, we'd be 0-0, and all of a sudden, Ole comes on, scores 1-0, and we win. And he must have done that 30 times in his career. And I was the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer of my team, except for the fact that I never scored a goal, and they never passed me the ball. But for 5 years, I ran around with a shirt on with my name across the back, and I came on average for the last 10 minutes, until I worked out I was much better in goal, and actually then I was quite good. Right? But you see, what did I get from this? I got to be with my friends. I got to belong to something. I got to some of those kinds of things. So these things sometimes we get lost in talking about tennis. I'm going to teach you a forehand. Well, I wouldn't go near my girlfriend's forehand in a million years. I'm not that brave, right? And to be honest, she doesn't want me to either. Because when she plays tennis, she wants to hang out with her friends and do other stuff. So quickly on the table again, what is it you think kids want from your program? Really interesting question. Right now, again, we don't have to feedback. I'll just throw you up what I think, and then we can move on. All right, go. Don't forget, if you want to get up and grab coffee, which is what I'm doing, at any point, just go ahead. We're very relaxed here. We're in Mississippi. Okay, we need to belong, connect, build relationships. So really interesting. When my dad is 80, my mum's 75. Although she'll kill me for saying that, right? My mum's 65. Right? My dad's still 80, right? And like a few years ago, they moved from London down to the south coast because they wanted to go. When they were kids, they used to get on the train. Their annual vacation was to get on the train in their best clothes and go to the seaside one day. So they wanted to retire to the place that they used to go to. So they retired down there. It's really sweet. When they left, we had a bit of a get together, and we worked out that all of their friends were actually the parents of the kids that my brothers played soccer with. Their whole social circle, or almost all their social circle, had been formed around their kids playing sport. So even for the kids connecting, parents want to connect as well. One of my friends owns a club up in Connecticut. He books a restaurant every month. Doesn't pay for it, for the parents. So the parents get this crazy rate on some kind of crazy deal with the restaurant to get them all to come to one place, so they all connect and talk to each other. And then he takes all the kids at the tennis club. They have a big sleepover in their sleeping bags on the court overnight. I'm sure that's legal, but he does it anyway. All right, and basically get all the parents to connect, as if now they're in that group. They're not going anywhere unless they all go at one time. Then you lose everyone at once. Don't think that's going to happen. All right. Okay. Well, some of us grow, stimulate, learn, test, develop. Yes. Some people are more driven by that. Some people are less driven by that. When was the last time you did something completely new? Like, you know, about 10 years ago, I tried to learn to ski. It wasn't fun. I spent most of my time, you know, like on my third point of balance, if you like. So, you know, learning something new is not common as an adult. Learning something new as a kid is daily. So they're much more used to it. Security and trust, number one thing for girls. Number one thing if you're working with a female athlete of any description, They have to trust you first before they listen to you. Men don't get it. Believe me, as a divorced man, I'll say that once again. Right? Do what you say you're going to do. Remember what you said you were going to do and do it. Don't do anything else. Okay? Because actually creating some stability, some trust, and knowing you would never embarrass them, never do this, that, or the other, really important. To be respected, we were just talking over here about like high school kids, for example. When you go to high school, you drop all the things that you're not good at because you don't want to be embarrassed. That's why you suddenly have the geeks, yeah, and the music kids. Where do I fit in the world? Little kids less so, because they do lots of different things, and often they don't realise what they're good at or not. But kids are still trying to get there. Okay, community, being involved in something bigger, yeah, and often to be involved in the process of deciding where we're going and what we're doing. Especially girls are good at that. If you ask boys, you know, what should we do? I don't know. If you ask girls, same question, sometimes you get a 10-minute answer. Right? So you have to think a little bit about, those are some of the things you would want to get out of tennis. You could get all those things out of your program. There's one big one that's of course not on there, and that's the word that's always at the top of every survey. And one reason kids give up tennis was because it wasn't fun. I'm sorry, that's a lame answer. It's only a lame answer because they don't define what fun is. Fun could be hanging out with you. Fun could be getting better. In fact, all of those things could actually have been the fun. Fun could be being my friends. Fun could be improving. As an adult, if you're not competent, and you're not competent for some time, it's not fun. It's painful. Comes to tennis, it's fun. No, it's not if you're really, really crap. True, right? So there's, those are the similar things. Being with friends, seeing your progress, being active, being competent. That means being able to play the game. Saying, you tell people about some statements I hear from kids. Some kids say, I do tennis lessons. I'm not sure what doing tennis lessons is. It's a weird one. Some kids say, I play tennis. It's a much better thing. Some kids say, I'm a tennis player. The last one's the one I'm always aiming for. I want the kid to define themselves by the fact that this is the thing they're into. I want that parent to complain that a kid keeps hitting balls against their bedroom wall. All right, so if we get down to, those are the needs, we have to get down to what is a program. And this is going to be the statement that some of you might shoot me for before we even get started. If you just give lessons, you don't have a program. You just give lessons. It's not a tennis program if you just do lessons. I also do another presentation which is called Stop Selling Tennis Lessons. It don't work anymore. It used to work in the heyday of tennis. When tennis was this big tennis boom, yeah, I've had a few projects in my life. I don't know if you remember Marcus Baghdatis. Remember Marcus Baghdatis? He still plays a bit. Yeah, he's got a very attractive wife now, so he doesn't play quite as much, right? But when Marcus made the finals of the Australian Open, he's a Cypriot. Anybody that could carry a tennis racket was calling themselves a tennis coach on Cyprus. I had to go and train with these guys, right? Because they didn't have a qualification or anything. Yeah. So basically, at that point in Cyprus, you could just sell tennis lessons over and over and over again. In the US, there was a time when you could just sell tennis lessons, and that was enough. It doesn't work like that anymore. This is what I define as a program. It has 5 core elements to it. We're going to go through each one of these core elements and show you some examples of what you might do, and give you a chance to talk about it and see. So the first one, let's start over here actually. I'll put this at the top, right, but we're not going to go to it first. For me, competition is, now let me define what competition is. Playing the game of tennis. Yeah, my ladies, my old club, they used to play a Thursday morning league called the Ladies Dorset Friendly League. Okay? But they didn't call it the Friendly League, they called it Witches and Bitches. Right? It was the most competitive league I have ever seen in my entire life. I literally, what we up to this week at World Pen, which is a bitch on Thursday, and it was like, there's no such thing as non-competitive tennis. You know what, you have that point, I didn't really want it anyway. Okay? So really, competition means playing tennis, at whatever level, whatever kind of thing you want to do. Getting out there and fighting against somebody else, in some way. Right, we have instruction, lessons, coaching, whatever format that might take. Some way of learning and improving and getting better. We have social, some way of connecting, belonging, being involved in something bigger. We have this one down here, which we've already said was the other customer, how we look after parents. It's very vitally important in our program. And then we have this other thing down here called practice. Do you remember in the old days when we used to practice? You used to go to the tennis club, just hit balls with your friends. Yeah, that you don't really see kids doing quite so much anymore. But coincidentally, pros do it every day. Pros don't take lessons. They go practice. Yeah? So somewhere along the line, we have to define what's the difference between instruction and practice. And can we put both bits in our program? Because that might be the opportunity for us to put those people that can't afford to have multiple lessons on the court more often at a lower rate, on a bigger ratio, just hitting more balls and doing something so they can still improve. Because don't forget, the #1 mission I said was to get a kid on the court at least twice a week. I didn't say take 2 lessons. Just get them on the court at least twice a week. All right, so these are the kind of things, the explanations. We'll breeze over that. So this is what a kind of program might look like. This is actually one of my early programs. This is kind of a kids program from 4 years old to 11 years old. Right? What you see is it tells you which ball they're going to use, what court size they're going to play. Term on this one, because it's a British one, it means semester. So every lot has 12 weeks, so you go, okay, these kids are going to spend between 24 and 60 weeks in that program. All right. Then you have the age group, and then you have some of the core skills they're going to develop. All right. So this is a real basic program. This is a map that explains. Yeah. Don't forget you'll get the slide anyway. Just something that now. I always remember showing this to someone in California, and they looked at me and they went, "Wow, I just worked something out." I said, "What? You know what you're talking about." "Oh, thanks for that." Yeah, because basically, you know, how many of us have a program that's outlined that says, right, your kid's going to come in there at this point here, they're going to do, and they have to do this and this and this, and then they get this, and then they do this and this, and this is the map. Because if I said to you, right, go outside, get in the car, the question you'd be asking would be, where are we going? Yeah? Unless you were just like, so, yes, fine. They're not worried about you. All right? So, somewhere along the line, we need to make sure that we've explained clearly what that map is. One of the things you might see that's not on there is I don't talk about recreation versus performance when I'm talking about kids. As far as I'm concerned, everybody is a performance player. They just haven't committed enough yet. So I instead talk about a pathway of levels at which a kid will go through sport. The first level I just call tryout. You turned up at the club, you haven't really got a lot of clue what this game of tennis is about. Your parents maybe dragged you along, you probably don't even have your own racket. You just joined a class for a little bit. Do you know the #1 factor that's going to keep you there? The DPC, the dazzling personality of the coach. You still don't know what's going on, but if you had some fun, you know you're probably going to come back. Yeah? So then you're going to sign up. Tennis is not going to be the thing yet. They don't have the passion. The flame hasn't been ignited. They're not desperate to get on the court again. If they had a great time with you, yeah. The next level, though, is we call the buyer level. So the buyer level is like, okay, I'm coming once a week. I signed up for 12 weeks of tennis. I bought my own little aluminum racket. You know, I'm kind of involved in the program. But I'm on a ticking time bomb. As we said, you know, most kids have left within 20 months unless you get them to the next level. So the #1 thing that's going to move the kid to the next level is to see some progress and also to have an outlet, whatever you want to call that. we're starting now in January, and at the end of February, we're going to have, whatever we want to call it. I get confused by the term play day. It seems like everything's a play day nowadays. Right? Every tournament, open day, everything gets badged under this play day thing. I'm not sure what that's about. So I'll call it like a little fun tournament we're going to play at the end of February. We're all getting ready for it. Right? That's my little outlet. Right? Oh, now there's a reason for me to want to do more. And if I commit to doing more, once I get to this third level, what I call the flyer level, right, the snowball's now rolling down the hill. I'm coming twice a week. I'm playing in some little competitions. I've got some outlets. I want to do this. I want to get better. I've got a reason to get better. I'm a little bit more motivated. And if I want to get to the last level, which is where I eat, breathe, sleep tennis, you don't have to worry about it. Because if you did the third level really, really well, some of those kids, as they see their improvement, as they get more involved, as you make sure the environment's right, they're just going to jump to it. Right? So for me, I never measure a program based on how many kids are in the program. I measure a program based on how many kids get to this level, which I define as I chose to do tennis over something else at some times of the week. Not that I'm only doing tennis. I do it at least twice a week, and I will play in some little competitions of some description. That's the number I'm judging. I went to a club once, 400 kids under 10. We got a great program, 400 kids under 10. Wow, how many kids play twice a week? Oh, no, we don't have any space for any to play twice a week. Oh, okay, how many play in tournaments? We never do tournaments. Oh, when I looked at it, guess what percentage they managed to keep every year? 45%. Yeah? 55% of the kids left every year. Okay, so they didn't have a great program, they had great marketing, and they lived in a catchment where there were a lot of kids. And that was the fact. Yeah? They didn't keep it up. So, you know, look, we all have other measures that we have to use, sometimes numbers, sometimes how many kids we keep. I know from the clubs that I consult with as well, that when the kids get to their retention levels are normally in the 90s. So when kids get to that third level, normally they're keeping 90% and upwards. When kids are in the level before, it's in the 60s. It's an interesting thing once you learn that. One of the commercial club groups in the UK did a study that said if an adult met 9 new people in their first year, so they actively played tennis with, had a 98% retention rate. So they stopped trying to just sell lessons, sell lessons, sell lessons. Instead, let's get people to meet each other. Let's have more socials. Let's connect with more people. Let's match people up to play together. And they kept a lot more people. So, there's my measure of success of a program. A successful program is one where children play the game, they keep playing the game, and they move along that pathway. They get more involved and more committed to the game of tennis. And you could measure your program by the fact, oh, we've got 20 kids that are in level 3 right now, that fly level. And then next 6 months' time, oh, we've got 30 kids in there. Yeah. Oh, now we've got 40 kids. That means you're making progress. And for me, that's a real positive indictment of what you're doing. Okay, and don't forget the value of a kid that's doing that kind of program. If you sat there and added all these things up, okay, so that's like at least 50 group lessons a year. 50 practices, probably 12 private lessons, 4 weeks of camp, up to 8 tournaments, 4 little social trips or something else that they're doing. They'll probably buy a couple of rackets and that racket bag that's so big that they could probably climb into them themselves. Yeah, drags on the floor as they walk. Probably some balls, uniforms. Oh, by the way, mum's drinking coffee in the canteen or wherever at the same time and doing various other things. The easy way to work it out is you take an average lesson group rate, times it by 150, that'll tell you approximately what a kid is worth in your program, if you can get to that level. It's a lot of money. And then I always say to pros, and this sounds really mercenary because we're talking about kids, imagine that kid is that money just walking around on legs. Like wadges of money walking around on legs. And I'll tell you for why I do that. If that was that much money, how much would you look after it? Yeah? And if you added that over a number of years, what would your level of customer service be like if you went, you know what, that kid's worth like 10 grand to me in the next 4 years if they stay in the program? Yeah? That's what literally they are. And our customer service level has to change a little bit because we have to do more than just sell lessons. Okay. So let's look at a few models. Let's just take a little segue. Hold on a second. Yeah, right, let's do that. Right, so there was a lot of information. Okay. What's the banana from above? Is there something that's come into your head and you've gone, oh, sorry, banana's very English. I can't do Southern. I've tried. Right? My girlfriend lives in North Carolina. You know, I can't do it. It just sounds patronising every time I do Southern. So it's not banana, but it'll be something. Right. Got the banana from above. Right. What is the banana from above so far? Okay. The things we talked about. What's the one thing that jumped in your head and went, oh yeah? Retention. That's a good point. Just tell the people on your table. That's all. I don't necessarily want to do that big group thing. I'd like to get us back networking on the table. What's the one thing we should be thinking about from the stuff we've already talked about? Okay. Go. Get up, grab coffee, do water, do whatever you need. Flex your muscles up back there.
Can't be hungry.
Just go coffee like that. They can get up and go grab a cup of coffee. We won't hold it against anyone. I always say putting tennis coaches in a room is like putting polar bears in the jungle. You can just about survive, but it's not your natural habitat. Okay, all right. So, instruction. Let's talk about instruction. I've worked for all these different organisations, lots of different things. This is sport time. This is like where the John McEnroe Academies are in Ireland. Some of you know Lifetime. This is the Norwegian Federation, South Australia, IMG. This is the Dutch Federation. The LTA Midtown is the clubs up in Chicago, down in Florida. Butch Staples runs. He's a national director. You know Butch really well. The point of putting all these logos up here is that every single one of them teaches kids tennis in a different way. And part of your instructional program has to be, you have to define a language. Now, I'm not here to tell you there's only one way to do this. In fact, I'm going to tell you the opposite. Yeah? I can't tell you that you don't speak proper English in the South. Actually, a little secret, the English changed the English language a lot more than the Americans changed the English language, which is why, yeah, it's true. Right? We bastardized the language. You didn't. Right? So your pronunciation is actually truer to the normal one than English people. But you're not allowed to tell anyone outside this room. Okay? But you get the idea, yeah? Language is, you can't tell me that Spanish is a bad language or Italian is a bad language, just as I want to teach tennis this way, I want to teach tennis this way, I want to teach tennis this way. The point is that you have to make sure everyone gets on your bus. Now the problem that we have in the US, and I'll say we, because I live half my life here, half my life in the UK, because your educational standards only require you to do 2 days, you got most of your education after your certification. Whereas, yeah, so you got qualified and then you went and did a whole lot of other things, right? And got your education, whether through experience or a whole lot of other things. If you were, for example, in the Netherlands, you have to go to 1 day a week for 40 weeks just to pass the basic level of coach education. All right? And that means everyone's much more on the same page. So what I'm saying to you is when you get a group of people together, you have to define, this is what we do here. We know there are other ways to teach. But in our club, in our facility, in order to maintain velocity. Do you know the difference between velocity and speed? Direction. Velocity has direction. Yeah, in order to maintain velocity, where we're going, what we're doing, you have to make sure everyone's on the same bus. No one's off the side trying to unscrew the wheel nuts and take the wheel off. Yeah? So, here's the way we kind of work out our velocity to start with. The first thing is I always do is, and if you know about goal setting, you know this is a common thing. You always start with where you want to end and work backwards. Yeah? So every month I go, I'm going to lose at least 6 pounds this month. Okay? I used to be fit once, before I spent my life on aeroplanes. Unfortunately, it kind of always starts at the beginning, and normally that's about the 28th of the month. Instead of what I should really do is say, this is where I want to be on the 30th of the month, and therefore on the 28th I need to be here, and on the 25th I want to be here, the 20th I want to be there, the 15th I want to be there, and work it backwards. And we have to do the same with, and this is what I do when I go to consult with a club. Say for example, I went to sport time where John has a bit of an influence over what gets taught, his pros are there, and they said, okay, we want our 12-year-olds to look like this. And it's tactical, very smart, this, lots of stuff like that, right? And then they work backwards. And that's quite important because your 10 and under program is not an island. It should be a 6 to 16 program, and that's just that bit of it. So when you get to 12, it needs to go beyond that. So I always get the high performance coaches involved in deciding what the curriculum is for the U10s, because actually I want them to tell me, well, I want to be working with a kid at 12 like this, and 14 like this, and 16 like this. And therefore we have to lay the foundations. It's the same thing as the New York architect that can look at the hole in the ground and tell you how tall the building's going to be. You have to start thinking about what those foundations might be. So that's quite important. And it's quite important then to start thinking about how do you think about these areas. And sometimes the way we do it is, has anyone seen a butler before? You kind of shape these things. So here's the areas we want to do. Like, okay, we want to spend a lot of time on physical development. So we're going to shape it out to be in a 5. Versus, okay, mental skills, we're not too worried under 10, we're just going to leave that to 2. Technically, I want my kids to be technically really good. And by the way, there is no reason why you can't teach lots of technique to young kids. It's a very important part, but you have to just start with something. Why? Right, so if you teach an adult, they can understand why they're doing something and they trust you. Well, if you want to be very technical with kids, it's fine. If you say to them, right, I want you to make sure that you finish your racket all the way over your shoulder with your elbow up here and your hand in that position. Right? One of the old traditional technical things that we would say, yeah? Why, coach? Oh, because I want you to kick the ball deep to keep the other guy behind the baseline. Yes, coach, that sounds like a good idea. We're going to do that. See? So that's the way you have to approach technique. Technique is very, very important. This message that says, let's give the kids the balls and the rackets and put them on the court and they'll all be able to play. Yes, if you want them to hit a forehand like that, lasso 3 cows before they hit a serve and their backhand like this. If you want them to be really bad, just give them the balls and rackets and let them get on with it. Some of the kids will end up being good. And look, we all know the best kids learn by themselves. We all know that there's a few peacock coaches out there who strut around going, look at my kid. Yeah. And you're going, yeah, you didn't do anything. That kid was born for that. Right? But every other kid, which don't forget are all the other trees in the jungle, we have to make sure that, whenever you get a good, healthy tennis environment, because all the trees are pushing against each other. So the kid that's number 12 in your club is pushing the kid that's number 10, who's pushing the kid that's number 7, who's pushing the kid that's number 5, and the number 2 is pushing the number 1. And if you don't have that, you know what's going to happen with number 1? He's going to go off and find another club where he can actually get some decent competition. You have to look after the whole jungle, right? That's a really important thing for us to think about as we develop this. So we've got these. How would you? I'm going to ask you to talk about. So we've got just performance factors. Mental. We're going to do a whole lot of mental skills stuff this afternoon in a fun way. So that's the presentation stuff. Physical, technical, tactical. All right. Now this is directed. Is how much you tell people something. Right. Hit your forehand this way. Which is fine as long as you've got them to buy it. And I use this analogy quite a lot. If I said to you, do you want a Ferrari or a tractor? What do you want? You get to choose. Generosity of the USPTA. Do you want a Ferrari or a tractor? There's a country girl down here. I'm going to have a tractor. Right? Most young men go, oh, I'd have a Ferrari. You go, yeah, because you probably need it to get any kind of date ever. Right? Okay? Right? If I said to you, oh, I forgot to tell you, there's a field full of mud here. Really deep mud about. There's no way around the field. By the way, there's a box on the other side. $6 million in it. What, Ferrari or tractor? Yeah, see? So you could be directed to the technical, because those two things kind of match up quite a lot. But you have to explain why. That's all. All right? How much guided? So that would be a lot more of how much you're going to use questions, right? How much orientated towards, and I use these two, it's very simple ones, because a lot of you will be sitting here and saying, I want to use tennis to make certain kids' lives better. Help them to get better education, help them to learn some of the fundamental core things that they need to learn in life. One of the things I always ask parents is, if I could guarantee your kid will not ever play pro or get a college scholarship, what do you want them to get from tennis? And they go, independence, sportsmanship, problem solving, discipline. Okay. Describe Roger Federer in the same kind of term. Independent, sportsmanlike, good problem solver, discipline. Okay. So actually, whether your kid's going to be a professional or not even get a college scholarship out of tennis, we should be focusing on the same thing. Wow. It's always a conversation we have with parents. It's a very simple one to have. I've got a whole other parents presentation which I'll willingly share with you at another time, but it's a real interesting one to talk about. Most of the time parents don't understand what their job is like. They have no idea. But anyway, so you just got to look at this work and say, okay, if somebody said to you, if somebody stopped you at Piggly Wiggly's, which is still the best name for a supermarket in the entire universe, right? Whoever thought that was a genius, right? Someone stopped you in the queue at Piggly Wiggly's. Do you have Piggly Wiggly's here or not? Yeah. Good. It's a good state. I judge the states on whether they have a Piggly Wiggly's or not. None in New York. Hate it, right? Okay? Right? Are you about personal development or player development? I'm not saying look, remember these are shades, so I'm not saying you have to be all one and not about the other one. I'm saying, yeah, but you probably can't all be 5 in every single one. So if you took those slices, how would you divide it up? And this is very important because you have to explain to somebody why they should come to your tennis program. And I'm trying to make you think more than just, my job is to teach you how to play the game of tennis. Yeah, my job is actually to do a bit more. Okay? All right, on your table, what do you think? What does your dartboard look like? Okay? Well, it doesn't have to be what it's going to look like. It could be, right now, we're big on technical, we don't do a lot of this, we don't do a lot of that. In the US right now, most people are very low on physical, for example. Don't do a lot of those kind of things. All right, go, a couple of minutes. A listening break from me.